What's up, guys? This is Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today we're going to talk about how to throw a football properly with great mechanics. Let's get started. All right, guys, so the first thing we're going to get into today is the grip that we're going to have on this football, okay? So a lot of guys, they'll be here with this classic grip, you know what I mean? This is how I like it. Some guys like their pinky down here. Some guys like their pinky all the way over the lace. I'm not a big believer in changing up this grip, okay? I've seen these two fingers close together right here. I've seen this index finger up pretty high. I think that's more of a comfort thing and what gives you the best grip. But the one thing that needs to stay consistent is we can't be gripping this thing super hard and super tight because we're trying to throw this thing hard, because that means we're tense with our upper half. We have to be relaxed with our upper half, have a nice firm grip but not squeezing this thing super hard, and there has to be a gap in between your palm and the ball, because when you have your palm all over this ball and you take the ball back, it doesn't allow you to extend and snap down on the finish, which gives you a good spiral to let it roll off of this index finger. So you got to make sure that there's a little bit of a gap right here, and this ball's in our fingers right here, not our fingertips to where we don't even have a grip on it, but in our fingers, keeping a nice little gap between our palm and the ball. Okay, now here's the next part I want to talk about. I want to talk about the placement of the ball. I see a lot of different placements from quarterbacks. I call this area the shelf right here. That's somewhere where I want this ball to be, okay? I just don't want this thing super high up here by my ear, and I know a lot of people say hold the ball by your ear. I'm telling you that is completely wrong, because when you hold it up by your ear, you're just getting right to 90 degrees, but we're gonna talk about why that's wrong in a second. But we don't wanna just go straight to 90 degrees. We wanna get this nice clean stroke. Then a lot of guys will have this thing super low right here, and what that does is that creates this real long motion, elongated motion. That's not what I want. I either want it right in the center of the chest, nice and relaxed, so we could get to this nice L, or somewhere in between on this shelf where we could just separate and get to this position first before we get to 90 degrees. So I don't want it too high and I don't want it too low. And the next thing is I want this gap in between our fingers, or in between our palm and the ball. All right, guys, so now we're going to talk about the two things that every quarterback needs even before they throw this ball, okay? We're not even getting into the mechanics of the throw yet. We're talking about the two things that you need to be in before we even get this ball out. So we're going to talk about our base first, okay? I think the foundation of any great quarterback, you look at any guy in the NFL, when they're sitting in this pocket, they have a great base. And what I mean by great base is I mean these feet are just outside of their shoulders. They got a slight bend of their knees, almost like they're riding a surfboard or a skateboard, and they're in this powerful position, guys, because this is where all of our power comes from. Our power comes from our legs, it comes from our hips, and it comes from our core, but we don't have any power if we're standing super tall and if we're super close together, because when we're narrow like this and we push, we have this real long stride, like you guys probably know. So I want my feet just outside of my shoulders, so when I do push off this back leg, this will get in the ground for me fast, and I can just rotate and shoot my hips through. Now, the second part is you need a great posture, okay? You should be from the waist up, trying to stand like you're standing in line with people and you're trying to be as tall as possible. From the waist up, that's what you should do, because when you try to stand as tall as possible, that will relax your shoulders here. And I don't know anybody that's like this when they try to stand as super tall. They relax their shoulders, they're as tall as they can from their waist up, and they have a great base, because when we're tall, it allows us to rotate fully. The arm, the natural path of the arm can just swing through. But when we're tense or when we're hunched over, we can't rotate, especially if I'm hunched over, because a lot of guys will get power minded and they'll be sitting so low that they hunch over and they can't rotate. So you got to pull these shoulders back, try to stand as tall as we can, make sure we got a great bend to our legs so we can just drive and get some rotation on this ball and have this arm come through naturally. All right, guys, so now we're going to get into the mechanics of the throw. And the most important thing, in my opinion, when you're playing quarterback and what comes through the throw first is your hip, okay? A lot of guys think that, oh, I need to throw the ball, and then they leave everything trailing. They have their hip and their core chasing their arm. That's not the case, guys. I want my hip to be able to come through first, but I want my hips to stay level, okay? I want this hip to be the first thing that comes through this throw, and I want to keep my shoulders back, almost like I'm looking down the barrel of the shotgun, and I'm pulling this like almost a bow and arrow, like I'm pulling this arrow back, but I got my hips to the target, and we want to rotate. A lot of guys will push off this back leg and they'll go like this. They have their hips arched. We can't rotate like that. My hips are angled up, and I'm gonna end up sailing this thing on the throw. I wanna be able, we already talked about the good base, good posture, but I want my hips to come through first, but I wanna keep my shoulders back and create almost this pull right here, because when I do decide to rotate through on the ball, it almost creates like a coil effect and a slingshot, like a bow and arrow, like we were talking about with my core rotation, then the ball just flows into it. If you guys try this, once you guys try this, having your shoulders back and just rotating through, there is no stress on your arm. We become body throwers rather than arm throwers. So the most important thing, guys, is having our hip lead through first, pushing off at this inside arch. And I like to pivot. I like to pivot with this back leg to ensure, almost like we're hitting a baseball, to make sure that this hip comes through. I keep my shoulders coiled back with great posture so I can just rotate through and deliver a good ball. But the most important thing is having this hip come through first. All right, guys, so now we're gonna talk about the stroke, okay? Every single quarterback throws different. There's not a single quarterback that throws the exact same as another quarterback. They all have different things, but the one thing that remains consistent with all the greats, I'm not saying that, you know, some guys in high school aren't good and college aren't good, but all the great quarterbacks, they get to either here in this perfect L or somewhere in this range before they get to 90. Okay, they don't go straight to 90. Nobody lifts the ball, because when we lift the ball and we try to get our hips torqued, when we decide to rotate through, it's almost like this slingshot motion when we throw. I used to have the same problem when I was a younger quarterback. I was taught to open to 90 and spread right here. That's completely wrong, guys. You want your hip going through like we talked about, and you want your shoulders going back and working this stroke. See, I tend to have this front arm come up a little bit because I'm a shorter guy, but this position right here, I get to this L, or sometimes it's a little bit in between this area. That's where we want to be, guys, because when we do decide to rotate through, it could come right to this 90-degree angle, and I don't have this kind of slingshot motion. And that comes from not holding the ball too high. When we hold it too high, we tend to lift. We would have to bring it down then up. We don't want that. That's why we have this thing either right in our chest, nice and relaxed, somewhere in this area, so we could get to either this L, somewhere in here before we get to this 90-degree angle. But that's where our stroke should be, guys. Right when you push off of this leg, you work this stroke, rotate through, that's when the arm gets to 90. The second phase of the throw, the rotation phase, that's where we get to that 90-degree angle, not first, not lifting this ball. All right, guys, so the last portion of the throw we're gonna talk about is the follow through, okay? How should we be finishing on this ball? I hear that a lot. Guy, I need to fix my follow through. I'm not following through enough. What does that mean? The way I teach it, the way I teach my quarterbacks is when we're set to throw, obviously you want this left shoulder, you want the 3 points of attack. You want the knee, hip, shoulder on the target. And when we drive and when we finish, I wanna replace with the right shoulder. And I tell my guys to have this arm pull this money out of the back pocket. Everybody likes money, so you got money in this back pocket, we wanna pull the money out. I've heard this been taught though, here and just let it drop. That works as well too, okay? I'm not too worried about this. What I'm worried about is when we let go of this ball. All great quarterbacks, you watch them, they extend. They're extending right at this target. They extend about maybe 8 to 10 inches in front of their front foot at this target, and that's what gives them accuracy, guys. It's almost like we're throwing at a dartboard. That's all it takes, throwing at this dartboard here. And now when we flick our wrist, I like to turn my palm out. I turn my palm out to make sure my thumb is parallel to the ground. I've seen just guys snap straight down like this, almost like they're shooting a free throw. That's what I want. I just don't want my wrist coming underneath like this and it breaking and have this underneath on the ball. And I don't want to be coming across my body like this. We talked about extending. When we come across my body, that's not the natural path of the arm. We want to be able to be here when we finish, right at the target, extend, and either just let it drop or rotate all the way through, but we got to make sure that we're rotating, guys, okay? Now, we're going to talk about the legs on the follow through. You want to keep your toes down. I'll show you a better angle. You want to keep your toes down through the throw so we have a slight bend in this leg so we could get some more power from our legs, because if I just extend on this finish, all my weight shoots up that I generated from the ground. I'm not going to have any power on the ball. Also, we don't want to come up and down on the finish, because that's when the ball will take off on us. We want to stay nice and compact here, toes down, nice tall posture, and just make sure. All right, guys, I really want to thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. Please like and subscribe to this channel to see more videos just like this one, guys. I would really appreciate that. It would really mean a lot to me. I'll see you guys next time.